Hello there, my name is Ramsley and welcome to the pit. Today I have the pleasure of bringing to you the wait. Oh, wait a second. Sorry about that. My name is Knightley and I'll be the narrator of this video. Why don't we start over? Highlander is in the current testing grounds and causing a lot of discourse in the community. More specifically, the Highlander community. From what I've seen online, majority of people do not like the rework simply because it guts wave dashing, makes his kit feel clunky and polarizes his stances even more so, to the point where he is actually worse than his current live iteration. For those of you who don't know, wave dashing is a tech for Highlander that allowed him to shorten his dodge recoveries while in offensive stance. You can perform this tech by dodging and switching your guard from side to side, or from any side really, to perform this. This allowed for tech like wave switch cancelling, which allowed Highlander to cancel out of his offensive stance immediately and allow immediate blocking and parries, and silent cancelling, allowing Highlander to cancel out of offensive stance with no cost to stamina. With the new testing grounds, Ubisoft had increased the distance and dodge recovery times of offensive stance and made wave dashing much slower than it is. For clarification for those who thinks it's gone, it's not. It's just slower and on a different timing. This is further proven by using the same tech stated previously and behaving as intended. Now, with that being said, it is not as effective as it is when compared to the live version. The purpose of this video is to go over the problems that Highlander still currently faces and the new problems that have been presented with these new changes. This video will also go over the current uproar with the Highlander community and their dissatisfaction with the last few testing grounds with Highlander. The most obvious problem as of right now is the lack of an opener for Highlander, or more specifically, the lack of a reliable opener. The addition to dodge cancel the startup animation of entering offensive stance from neutral is an okay change at best. This problem is similar to that of the hard feint into offensive stance. Highlander still lacks any neutral pressure against competent players and majority of characters. The removal of backstep light is a good and healthy change that was needed in his kit. But Highlander now has the most difficult time getting into his offensive stance. Some ideas that people have thrown around is to give him enhanced lights so that he can continue his chain, soft feinting defensive heavies into opposing side offensive stance light attacks, or as simply giving Highlander a dodge forward bash that allowed him to go into his chain. A change that can be useful is giving his hyper armor a faster startup. Highlander has a hyper armor startup of 700 milliseconds for both his top and side heavy openers. We can use backstep heavy as an alternative to backstep light. This move though doesn't have the unhealthy aspect of backstep light, where it was very safe and unpunishable for majority of the cast. If we increase the hyper armor startup to like that of the current cast, like that of Warlord's values, the heavy attack becomes more reliable. We can also increase the hyper armor startup of his chained heavy finishers as well, from 300 milliseconds to 100 milliseconds. These small but important changes would allow him to trade more effectively with opponents and make it consistent with the rest of the cast that have the same startup values. Now you might be saying, oh well, people will just parry the heavy opener, or they'll just light you as soon as you feint it. Well, this is where the new changes for the dodge cancel into offensive stance and the hard feint into offensive stance can be utilized together to become more effective and work in tandem with the new hyper armor values to further increase the viability of these tools. Continuing with defensive stance, if we apply the same dodge cancel properties from neutral and apply it to the hard feint into offensive stance, it will allow Highlander to force the opponent to make a read as to whether or not you will be committing to the heavy or feinting it into offensive stance. This mix-up essentially acts like that of Valkyrie's mix-up, where she heavy soft feints into all guard, or Berserker's dodge cancel on heavy openers. While this buffs the abilities by essentially combining the two, it still means that both parties have to predict what the next move their opponent will make. For example, if you heavy feint, then dodge cancel into offensive, and the opponent reads this, they can still guard break you or throw a neutral heavy. This would also increase its usability in defensive stance chains, as you're now able to do different punishes based on the circumstances. The original hard feint into offensive was usable at best, but with this upgrade, it essentially allows Highlander to be a bit nimbler, allow more options, and feel less clunky with his new abilities in defensive stance. Now we have made modifications to his new testing grounds tools and some of his properties. But what about one of his signature moves? Celtic Curse. Celtic Curse is believed by many, in the For Honor community, is Highlander's opener from neutral. This tool can be useful when trading or in a team fight, but not as a great opener in duels, as it is very reactable and has a high guard break vulnerability. Here's a weird thing about dodge forward Celtic. If a Highlander dodges forward to you and is in guard break range, you can guard break him out of the startup of Celtic Curse. Reducing the guard break vulnerability on Celtic Curse would already make it more useful. We could also speed up the attack somewhere between 700 milliseconds to 800 milliseconds. I give in between ranges because I was unsure as to which upper or lower bound to use, since Celtic Curse has soft feint options from left and right guard. This would put it up there with other dodge forward attacks that can be feinted and or soft feinted into other moves. Another idea that was brought up was to make Celtic Curse unblockable like that of Pirate's Mix-Up, but also reducing the damage down significantly. I currently don't know how to feel about this mix-up, but I'd like to know what you all think, and any ideas that you think would help to make it more useful as an opener. We've discussed how to make defensive stance more useful, and give Highlander more reliable ways to get into offensive stance. But that doesn't mean much if offensive stance doesn't feel like offensive stance. Many Highlander mains are upset about the dodge changes, the ones that we had discussed previously, since it fundamentally changes the playstyle of majority Highlander players. The feelings and playstyles includes both casual and competitive play. Let's go ahead and dive into how we can find a way to reinvigorate that feeling with this new version of Highlander. Although offensive stance is objectively better now for Highlander and allows him to impose his kit onto the opponent much more effectively, there are some aspects of him that have been lost and makes it harder and more forced into mix-ups than other moves that were more optimal in his live iteration than his current testing ground changes. As of right now in testing grounds, dodge kick is not a reliable punish on correctly reading on opponent's recovery, and you are forced to use the offensive dodge attack. Another is the dodge then offensive light to interrupt some mid-chains as they come out delayed in the current testing grounds. These are due to the longer recovery times that were implemented with the dodge changes. As of right now, trying to do this in the middle of chains will have Highlander eating the follow-up attack and not being able to punish. The only way to do this is if this is done on an attack with high recovery, a long startup or at the end of a chain. The offensive dodge attack that was presented in the current testing grounds is used as the dedicated punish for this and severely limits it to his only option. A possible fix that was presented to this is adding kick as a side dodge kick, dedicated move that allows cutting down the dodge recovery but doesn't have the feint properties. In addition, providing a dedicated dodge light attack move for offensive stance would be utilized like that in live as a dedicated interrupting tool. These two dodge attacks would basically function like that of Nobushi's dodge attacks. The iframes of the dodge light would stay the same, would function like that on Nobushi's dodge heavy, where if inputted too early you would cancel your iframes. These moves may seem like an overtune, but understand that while in offensive stance, Highlander is still unable to counter guard break or block. This allows Highlander to use these tools in specific instances and allows seasoned Highlanders to still perform the punishes that they've been accustomed to. I've went over aspects of Highlander's kit that I wanted to discuss and share. The main focus of this video was to help Highlander in defensive stance by increasing the viability of his toolset and giving him the feel of offensive stance, like that of his live iteration, by presenting the ideas and possible changes that could be combined and mixed together. I suggest looking at other videos or posts that do the same, or you asking other players that main Highlander their thoughts and opinions on the rework and what they think would make it better. Some content creators have already voiced their likes and dislikes with the iterations of Highlander's rework, such as Malicious, Slanderous, Jondeliner, Havok, Mr. Magic Trick, and many others. Some have collaborated with other creators like the Fiend of Ondar and Moron Abound to discuss the changes the devs have made and the future of the character. The discussions that I've seen from the content creators is great whether or not they agree or disagree with each other. Now, with that being said, I have some gripes with the For Honor community, and more specifically, the Highlander community, with how they've been dealing with these recent testing grounds. My gripes about the Highlander community is just the overall response they had to the rework. The responses to the current testing grounds and the one before it have been nothing but the removal of wave dashing. Comments and posts on forums are fixated on this one aspect, and they ignore the rest of the changes to the kit. No comments on the added moves and functions that were added to give the developers some substantial critiques. Literally, there was nothing but this. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect, and it definitely still needs some more ironing out before it's pretty good, but my God, you all sound like the damn seagulls from Finding Nemo. Another thing that also makes me both laugh and want bash my head in is the comments the developers made from the Warrior's Den.
Going into the Highlander is a lot more complex because you have to hold into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like Highlander mains are kind of like a unique breed because they're like, we want some love for our hero, but don't you dare dumb it down.
Yeah, right?
And so they love the pain.
Yeah, they're
like, no, I want it.
And then the responses from the community being shocked that the developers think we like taking it up the rear is baffling. You all are that surprised? When the loudest of you want to gatekeep the character and don't want him to be brain dead or easily accessible to the rest of the community, because God forbid giving a character a usable mix-up where opponents can't simply roll away or dodge attack your offense. To be this blind and oblivious that you all made this situation yourself is hysterically funny. Alright? I'm done being petty. Just keep in mind the rest of the kit and actually write something in your Reddit post next time about the other changes and not just wave dashing. That's all, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave any comments below about any changes you would add, change, or remove from testing grounds, as well as any critiques on the changes I presented in the video.